friends, it's Peggy from prettypapercards.com. I'm going to teach you today my basic two-punch card design. It uses two punches, that's why I call it that, the leaf punch and the starburst punch. And you can use this design for any card, and I'm going to show you how to do it and a little ways to upscale it, to kind of add more things, and you can do a lot with it. So what it consists of basically is the starburst punch with the sentiment and some leaves punched from the leaf punch. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I make my cards. I begin with a card base, and this is the card base. It's 8.5 by 5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And that's my card base for almost every card I make, is that card base. And then I always like to put a panel above that. And the panel is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I glue it down, or sometimes I use Stampin' Dimensionals. Today for this one, I've glued it down. And for this particular card, once you've got your card base and your panel, all you do is stamp your sentiment. And today I'm using for our samples, the beautiful Promenade stamp set. And the reason I wanted to use it is I like this sentiment and it fits beautifully inside the starburst, but many stamp sentiments fit inside that starburst. That's why I use it so much. So I basically used the gorgeous Grape ink to stamp my sentiment. I've punched out 2 leaves from the leaf punch. I've used some mini striped ribbon in gorgeous Grape also, and put under my starburst punch. I've lifted the starburst up on Stampin' Dimensionals and used a couple of iridescent sequins. That's it. Easy, right? Now I'll tell you one thing I love about Stampin' Up is that their colors coordinate. In other words, I can use the ink that matches the cardstock that matches the ribbon. And it just looks beautiful because every color is coordinated. Now let's look at some other cards that I've made, showing you what else you can do with this design. Here's a card that is the same basic design, and it uses Grapefruit Grove, one of our in colors for this year. That's Grapefruit Grove. And behind it now I have placed a piece of Garden Impressions Designer Series paper cut to the size of that panel I told you, 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I've adhered that with multi-purpose glue to my card base. Then I've used one of our pearlized doilies, and I've put some Grapefruit Grove grosgrain ribbon in there, and on top, and I've adhered that with little mini glue dots. And then I've adhered my starburst with Stampin' Dimensionals. And then, I don't know if you can see them, but I've got the leaves here in vellum, and I tuck those under and use a little bit of multi-purpose glue to adhere them. That's another design. Here's another one. This I used old olive ink. I used new colored doilies. This is the Share What You Love paper, just a little strip. That's another idea. Instead of using a whole piece of Designer Series paper, just use a strip. These little leaves have been punched out of Whisper White, and I used my bone folder to just curl them up a little bit and give them a little dimension to stand up off there. This is another stamp from the beautiful Promenade stamp set that I put on just to give a little extra. And I've added just a couple of glitter dots. I don't know if they're called glitter enamel or glitter dots. I know they're not the same green, but I thought they added just a little punch. So now let's make a card together. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is use my Stamparatus to stamp my sentiment. Now, I'm showing you exactly the way I use it. I have my foam under there because this is a photopolymer stamp, and so you need the foam layer. I've cut a little piece of the grid paper and marked what is my basic panel. And today I'm going to line just a piece of 8.5 by 2.75, 2 3/4 paper up there, just so I know where it is. You could do it anywhere. This is the way I do it. I'm putting my magnets there, and now I'm going to ink my sentiment for this card, we're going to do another different one. I'm going to ink it in Cajun Craze ink. So here's my ink. I usually put my stamp case underneath my this clear plexiglass so that the ink goes on evenly. So I'm going to ink that up. Oops, I got a boo-boo over there. And I'm going to press down and we'll see if we get a clear impression. No, so that's the one thing about using a Stamparatus. You can just keep going until you get it just right. Let's see how that came out. Okay, I like it. So there's our sentiment. Now we just punch it out with our Starburst punch. And you can see I put my labels on there, so I know that's my, I'm gonna dry that just a hair. So I know that's my punch. So I just center my sentiment and punch it out, and there I'm all done. Okay, now I've done a little preparation on my card. For this card, I'm using some of the Nature's Poem Designer Series paper. So that's going to be my base. And I've decided to add another piece of the coordinating paper that I've cut out with the Layering Squares framelits. I just wanted to just step it up a little bit and give us a different look. Now I'm going to put just a dot of glue back here, and usually when I glue, I just give it just a little bit, just like that. It doesn't really take a lot, just a swish there, kind of a quick going over. I'm just going to adhere that like that. And then on top of that, I'm going to put another strip from the Nature's Poem Designer Series paper. I just want to add some color there. I'm just putting a little bit of glue. It doesn't take a lot. And the reason I use glue is because I like the fact that I can move it around just a bit. Okay, that's done. Now I'm going to lift my sentiment up on Stampin' Dimensionals. What I do is just put one dimensional at the top and one dimensional at the bottom. Very quick. That way you don't waste a lot of dimensionals. And we're going to pop that on top of there. Now we're going to do some of our leaves. And I've gotten one of the coordinating papers to this Designer Series paper is Mint Macaron, so I'm going to use that and punch out just a few leaves. I don't know if I'm going to use 2 or 3 sets, so I'm going to punch through. And then I'm just going to play with them a little bit and see what looks good. I'm just going to pop them in like that. I don't know if, I think maybe, let's see. Do I want 2 or do I want 3? I'll go with 3. And I think on this particular one, I'm going to just barely round up those edges very gently with my bone folder, just to bring them off the paper a little bit. Then all I do is put the tiniest bit of glue right on that stem. And because you've only used a couple of dimensionals, you can tuck your leaf right under there and it'll stay. And again, we're going to just curl those leaves just a tiny bit so they stick up. Add our glue and pop that under there. Now, as I'm doing this, are you seeing how easy this is as a basic design? So if you wanted a thank you card, you just stamp your sentiment inside of that Starburst punch. First stamp and then punch. That's what I do so that I can get my sentiment even inside of the punch. If I try to stamp after I punch, I invariably mess it up. Okay, we're just going to pop that in there. What do you think? Gorgeous card, right? You could send this to anybody, and you can put any sentiment on there. So that's your 2-punch card design today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you'll come to my blog, prettypapercards.com. All of the supplies that you've seen today are available over there. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.